Alright guys, so it's been a few days since I got a video going. Working on the truck a little bit today. Doing some things. Broke some stuff. Not really that important stuff. Stuff I was going to replace anyways, but let's talk about that a little bit. Alright guys, a little disappointed. It's taking the truck out, driving around, and we have a problem. So, I don't know if you can see down there, but that radiator has a hole in it. Somehow the fan came forward a little bit and hit and rubbed on the radiator, and now we got a hole. It's leaking pretty good. I actually had to refill the radiator because I didn't know where the hole was coming from. Everything else looked good, and leaked it or filled it up and then saw it squirting out. So now that I've been messing around with this HP 200s a little bit, wanted to show you guys something. I know there were some of us that were kind of thinking we maybe had a little bit of a problem, so I think I might have found a problem. If we look over here, this is for the intake air temp. This is at 284, and this is reading 284 no matter what I do with it. If I unplug the sensor, if I plug it in, if it's hot, if it's cold, it's always reading 284. So something's definitely wrong with this intake air temp circuit. I've tried a couple different sensors even on it and can't get this to work properly. I think it might be an issue with the 5-volt reference, but I'm still digging into it. But I wanted to show you why I think this might be a problem. So if I go into the tune file, this is just the tune file for the stock tune. So if I go into this intake air temp spark and open this table, you see the reference of intake air temp and cylinder air mass. So as the temp goes up and as I start accelerating, it starts to pull more and more timing out of the engine based on the temperature. So this table only goes up to 194, and it's currently reading 284. So if it actually thinks that there's 284 degree temperature air going into the engine, it's going to be pulling a shitload of timing out of the engine, especially when I'm at wide open throttle. So if I'm at wide open throttle and I'm like in this range here, it's going to be pulling 10 degrees of timing out of the engine when it may be only looking for, 20 to 24 degrees at that point. So if it's supposed to be at 24, it's pulling 10 degrees and it's only at 14 degrees of timing. That could be a reason why the power seems like it's down and the time at the track wasn't as good as we were kind of expecting it to be. So that may be one of the problems. Still working through that issue, trying to figure out exactly how to fix that intake air temp thing. So I'll keep troubleshooting that, but I wanted to show you this to you guys, and that might be a reason that the power was down. So I'm going to try to use the GoPro on my head to explain this to you. You can see this is not red anymore, and it says -38. So I was able to figure out what this was. I wanted to take you through the troubleshooting process and what I did to fix this thing. So this is pretty messy. So I went down to the ECU, and you can see that I have this tan wire here. This is my signal wire that's supposed to be coming back from the intake air temp sensor. And so what I did was pull it out and depin it, and then plug this ECU plug back in to see if that was going to make a change. And it did make the change, so that was pretty good. But while this was out, I also checked continuity from here to the MAF plug, and that was all good. There was no grounding issues. There wasn't shorted out to ground at all. So I plugged this ECU plug back in, and then I just grabbed an extra wire that I had still in my pile and went back through and plugged this thing in. So with this wire plugged in, it went red. With this wire plugged in, it did not. So that told me that it was something still in this wire somewhere, even though it was not plugged into the MAF or the sensor at all. It was still had some type of a problem. Next thing I did was come up here and I just snipped this wire off because I wanted to see if it was somewhere like in this section of the wire or somewhere in this section. So when I cut this, I was able to test it now on my purple wire that I still have hooked up to the ECU. And so we'll hook this wire up, and now you can see it's red. When I unhook it, it goes to -38. But when I hook it back up, then it goes red again. So that tells me that, as weird as it sounds, it's between this and this. So that's my problem right there. So next step I did was to pull this out of the plug, and I want to look at just this section of wire here. So when I go over and I look at just this section, now this section of wire doesn't give me red, doesn't show red. So now I know that it's not actually this wire. So at that point I got kind of confused. I thought maybe there was a break in the wire or something goofy. So then, just for giggles...
Are you talking to yourself?
Yep. So then, just for giggles, I decided to come over here and test it to the 5-volt reference wire. And now it goes red. Touch it, goes red. Pull it off, goes back to -38. So basically what's happening is these two wires are touching inside of here, and that's what my problem is. So the problem's actually inside of this plug, because the bare metal is touching on the wires. Next thing I did was wrap some tape around this, because I wanted to kind of see what was happening. Wrapped some tape around there, jammed it in, pulled it out, and you can see the tape line is broken. So that's exactly where it's touching inside, and that's what was giving me that bad signal inside the plug. So this was kind of self-inflicted, because in order to get this to work, I ended up drilling those holes out to get those wires in there, because this is a plug from like a Silverado or something, and I needed to do a plug swaps, because the MAF that I got wasn't the original MAF. So I ended up getting the plug and the MAF off the other truck, and then pulling the wires, repinning them, and putting them in here, and I had to drill them out. So I don't know if you can see inside of there, that gasket that's on this wire is actually sticking through to the other side, and because I drilled those center pieces out as little dividers, now the metal is touching. So I think the next step is going to be, hope you guys can see this stuff, but I think the next step is going to be to, since the tape didn't work, I'm probably going to go through and I'm gonna bend this piece and cut it off. I'll probably cut it off right here and then wrap it in tape and then see what that does. So I'm going to put this in. I snapped that little piece off there, just unwrapped it and kind of twisted it, and it popped right off. Now I'll stick this happy little mother sucker right in here, and I'll grab my purple wire, because this one's still hooked up inside the ECU and the intake air temp signal position. Wrap that turd on there, and now we have -38 still, so that's good. So I think what I'll do now, I'm going to hook up the MAF, because this has the temp sensor in there, and I should get a reading, hopefully close to ambient air temperature. Then I'd be solid. Yep. Oh, you can see that. 64 degrees, 64 and 63. So that's I'd say pretty close to air temperature. So now we're doing pretty good. Alright guys, so that's about all I got for today. The radiator thing didn't really work out as well as I hoped. The brazing did work pretty well, but I think it would have worked a lot better if I actually took it out and laid it flat. Then I could do the brazing on a horizontal surface. Gravity was really working against me, and every time I would kind of I don't know, get the aluminum to melt, it would just fall a lot of the time. So I didn't get it to stick where I wanted. So didn't really work out the greatest. I am planning on getting a new one in a couple days. I was kind of hoping to just patch that thing up and then make it to the track today because there was another event today. That's why I wanted to just kind of get it ready. No idea how my fan hit the radiator and put a hole in it anyways, but now that thing is gone and I'm going to do an electric fan with a new radiator, so that'll be coming in a couple days. Playing around with this HP tuners thing and looking forward to starting on the turbo build. I kind of want to play around with the HP tuners a little bit on just the stock engine before I start doing the turbo stuff, just to try to understand the software a little bit more, but it seems pretty good so far. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Have a good one.